welcome to this week's edition of Sunday Night Live. For those that tune in every week, you know what it's about. We talk about all things automotive. Variable ops, fixed ops, doesn't really matter. Whatever helps us all become better, we try to bring value to the audience every week and, share. I bring on the experts that share what they do. And then we get into dialogue and questions come up. So the goal of this is to help each other become better at the craft of automotive. Because let's face it, our business does not have the best of reputations. And as with anything, it's a few that ruin it for the good. So we really strive to help everybody so that when they have an interaction with you, you change the way they feel about automotive. And that will benefit the next person. So we're always paying it forward. And I'm very honored to have with us AJ HOLST. He's a guy that many of you know, some might not. He's in the fixed ops space. And, I've been on all sides, variable ops, fixed ops. I just love the car business. When I was growing up, I always drew cars because I had aspirations of becoming an automobile designer. So everywhere I went, I would draw pictures of hot rods and sports cars. I called the cars Maseratis. Get it? Meyer and Maserati. Not by accident. For any event, so I started to go to school for engineering. And after about a year and a half of drawing nuts and bolts, I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to do something different. So I got into the repair business. I ran several aftermarket shops. And then I got into the dealership business. So I just love automotive. Why I went off on that tangent, I have no idea. AJ was telling me about tangents before, so maybe that's what sparked it. So AJ, welcome to the show, my friend. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got here?
Paul, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Really honored. Thank you for asking me. A little bit about me. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I've been 37 years in the business. I started out as a salesperson. Was a salesperson for about 12 years. My daughter she was really good at playing ball. I wanted to see her play. And at the time, service departments weren't open on Saturdays. So it was a great transition. And my mentor and the fixed operations director at the dealership that I worked with, who's a great friend, his name is Robert DeRighi, said, you'd be great as a service advisor. So I did. I transitioned over and I loved it, because I enjoy selling, but I loved it. And then I transitioned into that, became a service manager, became a parts and service director. And then for the past 10 years, I've been doing consulting specifically with SOS. I was with SOS for a while, which really got into the express service, really into express service. I worked with numerous OEMs with them. Then I went over to Ardent, and now I'm currently doing some work with PDI as an independent consultant with them. And my major client right now is Nissan and Infiniti. But I got in the business really because I partied too much and they threw me out of college. I mean, that was it in a nutshell. I came home. I think it was Christmas Eve. I got the notice in the mail saying you're on academic dismissal or something like that. And my father looked at it and I thought for sure he was going to kill me. And he was just like, all right, kid, you got a choice. He goes, go and get a job or go in the military. I tried to get in the military, but because of my knees, we were talking about our knees earlier.
Yes.
They looked at my knee and they said, sorry, kid, you're in peacetime. We can't take you. So I happen to be have a friend in the automotive industry, and I started doing that, and that's where I've been for the past 37 years. And I was very fortunate too, because I was with the same dealer group. I started with one dealer group, left there after about maybe 6 or 7 months, and then went to another company called Pine Belt Automotive in New Jersey. And I was with this company, I think about 25, 26 years.
Wait a minute. Did you say New Jersey?
I'm originally from New Jersey.
What exit?
82, which would be
that's an inside joke that only people from Jersey understand, right?
Absolutely. Exit 82, which was Toms River, New Jersey, which has the Little League World Series. They won the Little League World Series a few years back.
Yeah.
The Amityville horror movie was filmed there. What else? Maybe Jersey Shore, that stupid
Okay.
show on MTV. You got to go through Tom's River in order to go over the bridge over to Seaside Heights to go over there. That was filmed there. But yeah, man, it's like an Irish Catholic, Irish Italian and Catholic, area. It's just really chill, great place to grow up. And now I live in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Absolutely, I love it.
Awesome. Well, welcome. All right, so we have some guests here. We have David Munford. David, we were hanging out with your wife earlier today at the pop-up sale we had. I don't know if you caught any of that. Eric Jeruggi, did I say that right? My apologies if I didn't. Says, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for what you are doing today. Oh, it's my pleasure. It's our pleasure. Robert Allen Carvel. Hello from Hotlanta, Georgia. Thank you for joining us. He's a regular on the show. And David is from Cleveland, Tennessee. Mark Williamson, another regular, says, howdy all. Chris Dietz gave us the double muscle emojis. And somebody's coming across as LinkedIn user, so I don't know who you are. Please let us know. And Jeff Daniel, two of the best right here and now. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kudos. So today,
good people.
It's kind of an interesting time for us because we're in this artificial bubble where we're selling cars like flapjacks, or as my friend says, we're selling cars like candy bars. Okay. The only problem is there's not many cars. And just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, bam, in comes a terrible storm, flooding, and now we have even less of what we didn't have before. So while the per car profits are great, it's like the $10,000 Apple. You only need to sell one, right? Because we don't have that many cars anymore to choose from. But the profit center of a dealership has always been the service department. The term fixed absorption is not something somebody just pulled out of a hat. It's generally been the service department that carried the store. And BC, or before COVID, there were actually many new car departments that lost money. Some of the common complaints were carrying costs are choking us because the cars would sit too long. The thing of now, the cars are sold before they come in. But BC, before COVID, I don't know, there were a lot of birthday cars hanging around parking lots, right? And those are all cars that cost people money. But what always made money is the service department. So now we're kind of in a double-edged sword because we don't have the new to sell. We're selling more pre-owned, but we can't even get enough pre-owned. But the issue with selling pre-owned is pre-owned customers generally don't come back to the service department at a dealership to get their car serviced. So yes, it's good that we're making the money on the new cars, but down the road, we might have a little bit less service because some of those people aren't going to come back. So the focus on fixed stops is even more now than what it's been in the past, because now we really need to make sure that our game is spot on if we're going to capture this business, wow people, and have them come back and refer their friends and family. As Tully Williams, my friend, says, we are in the repeat and referral business. And no better place to do that than in service. So we're going to start first with advisor training. That seems to be something that, there are stores where you're sink or swim. They say, hey, welcome aboard, kid. Shadow that guy or that gal over there for a few days. There's your computer, there's your desk. Welcome to the team. That's it. So what are your thoughts on advisor training and some of the pitfalls and things like that?
Paul, the thing that I see quite often, and the people that are on the panel, there's some great people out there. Jeff, Mike, Eric, I know all these guys. Unfortunately, I don't know some of the others, but I'm sure they're talented people. One of the things about service advisors in general, service advisors talk to more people in one day than salespeople talk to in a week. But they are the least trained. And you gave a perfect the way they're trained. Most advisors are trained, hey kid, go follow this guy or follow this girl. And then after 2 days, if you're lucky, they're out writing a rather because that person that they were following is too busy, can't do them, called out sick, whatever the case might be, and they're basically just thrown in there. In my opinion, an advisor that's making a living doing this job, it's a miracle in and of itself that they're making a living. So they should congratulate themselves, because with the lack of training that a lot of advisors don't have. I'm all about training, and it starts with a quality greeting. It starts with that walk around. It's talks about what are we selling? Talk about get people into the why, because you got to remember, a service advisor is a salesperson.
Yeah.
But they're just a salesperson of time. They're a salesperson of time.
And they're educators, really, with the customer.
Absolutely. They definitely have to educate the client. One of the big pushes, look at tires. Tires, for instance. Dealerships, they do backflips when they sell 200 tires a month. Meanwhile, you go right down the street and you go over to Goodyear, and their average month is like 3,000 tires.
Right.
The people at the dealership are head and shoulders better in terms of quality people and what they have, but they don't know about tires. They don't take the time to learn about tires. One of the biggest defectors away from the dealerships are tires.
Damn.
So we really need to learn about that. The other thing too, as far as service is concerned, when you and I started in the business, and a lot of the other people on the panel, when we started in the business, you were seeing people probably 4 or 5 times a year. You were seeing them every 3,000 miles, 3,500 miles. They would do an oil change, and then every other day they were doing a tire rotation. So your customers were getting accustomed to coming in and seeing you and doing business with you and getting into kind of a routine. Fast forward to now, you're seeing a customer, if you're lucky, twice a year.
Right, if you're lucky, because a lot of these times, like
right.
my driving, when I started dealervendormatch.com, now I work from home. So I went from driving 30,000 plus miles per year to, so far this year, I think I've done 3,000, 3,500 miles. So I service my car once a year. I don't go anywhere.
Yeah. And, I remember when I first started as an advisor, as an advisor in 96, a 30,000 mile service on a Nissan was oil change. It was a rotation. It was an air filter. It was a fuel filter. You did a transmission service, spark plugs, coolant service, and you would probably you attempt to do an upsell of like an alignment and stuff like that. There would also could be possibly a cap rotor wires. Now, what do you've got? Plugs are 100,000 miles plus.
Yeah.
Coolant's
and guess what?
100,000 miles.
When they come out at 100,000, they look like brand new.
Yeah. So plugs are 100,000, coolant's 100,000, transmission fluid I think is like 60, depending upon the manufacturer. Cap rotor and wires.
Some are sealed, so they're never going to get touched.
Cap rotor wires are non-existent. Your fuel filter is in the gas tank, so that's one less thing that you have to do. So what do you have? You've got about 7 commodities that you can sell: oil changes, rotates, air filter, cabin filter, wipers, batteries, bulbs, okay, and cabin filters. You really have 8 commodities that you can sell, and you better do those right, because if you screw it up in the 2 times that you see the customers coming in, you'll never see them again.
Yeah. That's why tires are so important, because the person that owns the tire owns the brakes, and in turn owns the service.
Absolutely. I mean,
let me get to a couple of people here, because I don't want to fall too far behind. Let's see here. Ron Usher is in the house. He's always here. He's my favorite retired tech. I think you're the only one I know that's ever retired from the service department. I don't know anybody. And Lamont, what's funny is that issue is back with the LinkedIn user thing. It says, hello, gentlemen. And Michael Barrich, good evening, gentlemen. And it says, never been a better time to be in the service industry, for sure. And Robert Allen Carvel says, that's right, service is carrying the dealership just like 1996 to 2008, we are in that cycle again. And Robert Sebastian says, hello, gentlemen. Robert puts out some great videos. Matter of fact, one of the first things you said is, as the experience starts with the meet and greet. And Robert he does some great videos on, hello, welcome to XYZ Motors. My name is Robert, and you are? Just basic stuff, right? We
Right.
recycle the stuff that we know has always worked as if it were something new, when in fact, it's just that we never carried forward with it. So now we reintroduce it again until the next manager comes in. And Kenneth Dunner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Kenneth Dunner says, I always go to the dealership for service and repairs. He's got, I think at last count, somewhere around 300,000 miles on his Toyota. So he's obviously well taken care of by his dealer, which is why he goes back. He trusts them, and they've done a great job for him. He's over 300,000 miles. Robert Allen Carbell says the service advisor job is the hardest job in the dealership. The service manager is doing a disservice to that employee by not training first. That is 100%. The better you train your people, the easier your job becomes, because you're not spending your day putting out fires. I'm a big proponent for, rather than be the best firefighter in the world, I'd rather implement a good fire prevention strategy. And as it relates to the car dealership and the service department, that means a well-trained service staff, so that they have the responsibility and the empowerment to be able to best take care of the customers, so that you can manage the process. So spot on, Robert. Robert Sebastian says, you guys just gave me a revolutionary idea. We're going to make sure customers see us 4 times a year with technology. Well, with all the recalls and stuff, I think I know which technology he's heading towards.
Yeah.
Kenneth Dunner says, my dealership does all that. Michael Weldon, welcome back. He's from the West Coast. Retention is the key. And John Frazier, I'm not going to lie, John Frazier is my favorite service director out there. Good evening, Paul and AJ. Kenneth Dunner says, over 350,000 miles, honey. Wow, that's a lot. That sounds like a GM engine in backwoods somewhere running a machine, right?
Paul, one of the things that I really like to do, and some of the guys that I see quite often on other podcasts and stuff have heard me say this before. When you're training an advisor, it's real easy to say, teach them that meet and greet. It's real easy. But you got to stay on top of it, and you got to stay on top of it. You got to let them know you're watching, and you also have to listen to what they're saying. Okay, you have to coach them. You have to coach them along. One of the things that I like to do is you got to start from the customer's perception of the dealership. And I often will start with the advisors, and I'll literally walk them outside, and I go to the front of the drive-through, and I go, look in there. It looks like a damn cave. It really does. And you're asking your customers, your customers are being told, most dealerships, their signage stinks around the dealership. So it doesn't really give them a very clear path as to where to go.
Yeah.
The doors are usually closed, so they don't know. How many times have you seen them when the doors are open, come right to the apron and stop? Happens all the time. Your customers are scared to death to come inside. It's dark. It looks like a cave. They think they're going to get ripped off, and they don't know anybody that's in there because they don't have the luxury of coming in 4 or 5 times a year and getting used to, exactly what goes on into the dealership. And then if they do pull in, you get a bunch of service advisors that are sitting in their office looking at them like they're in a fishbowl, instead of coming out and actually greeting them in the drive. And like Robert Sebastian said, give them a quality greeting. Hey, how you doing today? Welcome to such and such dealership. My name is, hey, what's yours? You would be shocked at how many times I go into a dealership and service advisors all say, hello, how are you? But most, and I'm going to go out on a limb, I'm going to say 98% don't even give them their name. They just go from, hey, how are you? To, So what can I do for you today? Or how can I help you?
Yeah,
Or
I've
the
seen
worst
it.
one is, do you have an appointment?
Yeah, no, I've seen it. And the process, what you described, people will be reluctant to make a purchase when they don't know what's going on, when they're not informed, right?
Yeah.
The process is such a simple one. When they pull in, immediately get up, walk up to them, introduce yourself. Thank you for coming in. We've been expecting you. My name is Paul, and you are, or one better yet, if you know which cars are coming in and you know who they're coming to see, it would behoove you to know that that the customer pulling in that particular Infiniti with plate number, whatever, that's Mrs. Jones right there. So for you to walk up and say, "Hi, Mrs. Jones, welcome. We've been expecting you." When I go to, I service both the automotive and the restaurant industry and the yarn industry. But when I go to Davio's, the first time I went to Davio's in King of Prussia, the porter came up to me, saw the Connecticut tags on my car, put his hand out, welcomed me, gave me his name, greeted me by name. It was the first time I was there. Why? Because they have a database of all of their people, all of their regulars, what they like, I would imagine what they look like, and if they know, where they're from. So this person greeted me. I felt like a king right off the bat. So when you go in and you do that greeting, they know which cars are coming in. They have the plate numbers for the most part, right? Unless it's a brand new customer. But even then, I think you'd be smart to ask what the plate number is. How cool is it for the customer to come in and be greeted that way?
In many cases too, the dealerships also have the technology
Yeah,
where the customers
RF
are
stuff.
calling in. They're either making an appointment online, or they are calling in, maybe going through the BDC. And if you have the technology where it's right on a tablet, and you walk up to the customer and you say, "Hey, how you doing? My name is AJ, and what's your name?" "Oh, Paul Major." "Mr. Major." "Hey, Mr. Major, I got you right here. Good to see you. So let me just make sure this is what you're here for," and you can start that conversation right off right there.
Yeah,
But a lot of folks don't use that. A lot of
you're
folks
right.
don't do that. The technology that's out there, I can't tell you how many stores I've gone to and I see iPads and tablets that are used as door stoppers or paperweights, because it's like, you know what, we don't like it, we don't want to use it. It's just like you're kidding yourself. I saw something that Michael Barrett wrote: "Train them to win." Here's a guy that hates losing more than he likes to win, but he trains his people like that. He trains his people like that. It's a pretty incredible story.
Says deliver higher levels of customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction, which in turn reduces turnover and increases profitability. Robert Allen Carvel says proactive versus reactive. The proactive conversation is 180 degrees different than the reactive conversation. And JB Floyd says privacy concerns regarding what I just talked about. Not really, because if I'm coming in for service, I'm giving you my information. So I don't really see any privacy concerns there. It's not like, I'm going out on the street yanking people in. These are people that have made appointments, that have scheduled to have their cars worked on. So they've granted you permission for that. Robert Sebastian says, AJ, you are so right about the coaching. Advisors so quickly deviate, dismissing critical pieces of the process, but it's those details that make the sale easy. Michael Claridge says, fact. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to being proactive as opposed to reactive. If you're going to train your people, if you're going to hold them accountable to be, doing a process, and everything we do is process driven. But if you hold them accountable to doing the process, you have to. It can't be a sometime thing. It's got to be every time. Every kind of thing. I mean, this. Some of the people have heard me say this before, and it's not exactly politically correct, but you can't be a little bit pregnant.
Right.
You got to, if you're going to do something, if you decide that you want to do express service, if you decide that you want to do mobile service, if you decide that you want to use, tablets at your store, whatever it is that you choose to do, you better be in it all the way and all the way in, because if not, it's going to fail, and it's going to fail miserably, and you're going to end up with egg on your face, especially if you're a service parts director or a service director at your dealership.
Now, here's another way too, people think of, I just need an oil change, right? How many times people think the only service their car needs is an oil change? They don't even think about brakes until they hear the crunching sound. So all they come in for is oil change. So I have a kind of a different packaging on that. Not all stores do this, but it's highly recommended. Have a printed menu, paper menu. Okay, so if AJ is coming in for an oil change, okay, and AJ has, different manufacturers have different intervals. So just for sake of argument, he's got 19,400 miles on his car, and that car is due for a 20,000 mile service. Okay, not just an oil change. Sure, you could do an oil change for $60 because that's what the customer came in for. But if you now have that paper menu, and I know that your car is due for a 20,000 mile service because I'm prepared, I've got that page open to 20,000 miles. I've got it circled that says 20,000 miles. And now when you get out of the car, I go in, I'm going to confirm the miles with you while you're holding that menu in your hand. I say, okay, so AJ, you have 19,535,000 miles on your car. Okay, is that about right? Yeah, that's right. So now that customer is standing there with the paper menu in their hand, and it says 20,000 mile service. It says oil and filter change with synthetic oil. Now, take it even one step further. You put the reason why, right? Not just hand them a menu that says what's due, but also put in, with regular oil changes, fresh oil moves through the engine, the lubrication of the metal parts increases your engine's performance, helps it run more efficiently with less work, so it doesn't eat up as much gas. Okay, so the customer's standing there. Now they say, oh, you know what? I know I came in for an oil change, but I'm really due for a 20,000 mile service. And then you got the next thing on here, rotate tires and balance. Tire rotation spreads wear evenly among tires, which in turn extends tread life. This results in a uniform tread depth for all four tires. Better tread wear and tread depth improve overall vehicle performance, including braking and cornering. Even wearing of tires is important for balanced vehicle handling. So now the customer's looking at this like, oh man, you know what? I need more than just an oil change. So when you reinforce with them why they're there, and now they're seeing they need other items and specifically listed why they need them, what are the odds that you're going to go from an oil change only ticket to a 20,000 mile service maintenance ticket?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm an absolute proponent of menus. But the service consultant has to address it and bring it to the customer with conviction.
Yep.
They can't be really wishy-washy about it. It can't be, well, let me show you what, change words like recommend. Take words like recommend completely out of your vocabulary and use words like, let me show you what the factory states you need to have done at this particular mileage. You're not lying to them. You have an owner's manual that's going to, you got an owner's manual that's going to back it right up. Let me show you what the factory says you should do at this particular mileage. Same thing with the multi-point inspection. How many times do you hear a consultant go and speak to a customer and say, let me just go over with you what the technician recommends? The word recommends, it's a really nice, soft and cuddly, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's a very it's not very aggressive. It's very, very nice. It's very, fluffy.
Yeah.
Why say that? Just tell the customer right over. Let me go over with you what the technician found during the inspection.
They
Passive
hear
aggressive.
technician
That's what I was
recommend.
looking for.
Well, when they hear the technician recommends, as a customer, the hair in the back of my neck stands up because I'm thinking the technician gets paid to fix cars, and the more things he finds wrong, the more things he's going to try to sell me. So if that conversation of, we took a look at your brakes at 2 millimeters, whatever the spec is for a particular car, at 2 millimeters, those brakes need replacement, and explain to them why.
Paul, if you build, and ultimately it all rolls down to building the relationship with the customer.
Yep.
If you build your relationship with the customer from Jump Street and you get them coming in, and they're coming in, let's say that only twice a year they're coming in, barring anything broken on their vehicle, they're coming in twice a year. If you consistently go over the multi-point inspection, if you consistently advise them what's going on, if you advise them what the factory states should be done at certain intervals, and go over with them things that the technician found, when it comes time to tell a customer that they need brakes at 35,000 miles, they shouldn't be surprised.
Right.
If they're surprised, you didn't do your job.
Right.
And that's a lot of things that a lot of advisors they forget about that. The multi-point inspection is huge. I'm a big proponent of letting them know about it early. I use it very simple. Hey, this is a multi-point inspection. The technician's going to check over your car. It's really cool. It looks just like a stoplight. It's green, yellow, and red. Green's great. Yellow needs attention soon, and red's going to need immediate attention. And I'm going to go over this with you as soon as I get it back from the technician. So now when you bring it to their attention, it's not a big shock. It's not something that they'll be like, oh my God, what's this? Hey, well, you remember that green, yellow, red thing I told you about? Oh yeah, well, here it is. We take for granted because we see it in our sleep.
Right.
We take it for granted.
It's second nature to us, but it's not second nature to the customer.
Right. And again, we take a lot for granted. I think a lot of advisors aren't taught how to sell. Getting a no in a sales transaction, it's kind of a normal thing. It's your job to find out what the no is and kind of overcome that objection, and get into that. Learn how to. Don't be afraid to ask for someone's business.
Right.
Just because somebody turns around and says, nope, I'm only doing an oil change today, that doesn't negate the fact that you have to still tell them what the vehicle needs. I think, I forgot where it was. I think Jeff Daniel had mentioned something about this once before. There's actually stores, I think, in Michigan or some other parts of the country. They forgot to tell the customer that their tires were at a certain level, or that their brakes were a certain level, or something like that. It ended up there was an accident or something like that. You've got some advisors that are actually in jail.
And stores that are out a lot of money from settlements.
So I mean, you got to tell the customer exactly what's going on with your vehicle. You have to be prepared for the customer may say no, and if they do, you're not. It's not wrong to ask the customer why.
Right.
It's okay to ask a customer why not.
You've earned it. You've earned that right. And
yeah, absolutely.
You have to own the conversation. You have to have such conviction, right? You could say, oh, well, can we do we'd like to do a multi-point inspection. That implies we're looking for stuff to charge you for, as opposed to, hey, we're offering you a multi-point inspection. It's recommended because they provide you with a complete overview of your car's issues so that they can be dealt with before becoming too serious and expensive, right? Who's not going to respond positively to that kind of verbiage?
No, and again, you're 100% right, Paul. And again, it goes back to what I had said earlier. You have to say it with conviction. You can't be wishy-washy. You can't not have a backbone. If that's the way it's going to be, I mean, that it's not something you should be doing. Maybe you should look at something different. But I mean, it's a different. Being a service advisor is a tough job. I mean, you're in the trenches, and I love it. I dig it, and especially when I'm training with service advisors, I make it very, very clear. I'm a service advisor just like you guys are. I get down in there. I roll up my sleeves, and I try to. I love role playing with them. I like to hear what they have to say. I get down. I don't want to say down to their level because that sounds condescending. I like to mix it up with them and find out really what's going on with them, and I just absolutely love it.
All right, let's get to a couple of comments. Eric
Sure.
says, can get as fancy as we want with technology. We must keep our basics the strongest. A genuine welcome and introduction is key. Yeah, that we oftentimes overlook the simple. That which is right in front of us is often what we don't see. Ron Usher says, AJ is spot on with the customer first impression. Not only does the advisor have to have training, but their attitude and personality is big. Gain their trust. Once you have trust, you have everything else. I don't care about selling everything. I care about selling one thing, and that's the trust. Because if I've sold the trust, they will come back to me for everything that they need when they need it. Eric says, spot on, AJ. Rob Stratham, hey, everyone. And John Frazier says, advisors must plant the seed on the drive. Forget the sales pitch on the drive. Just advise, inform, educate, and sell on the MPI. When the tech validates the advice that was given on the drive, sales will skyrocket. We see a 400% increase in RO open to close dollar value with this process. John is a guy that walks the talk. And talk
Absolutely.
About involvement. John's involved. Not that he's micromanaging, because he's not. But he knows where every single one of his advisors is at with the customer. Every single one. Because he's in on the conversation. And if there's help needed, they don't have to ask him. He jumps in because he proactively sees that there's help needed and says, hey, I'd like to take care of Mrs. Jones for you. And they're generally, hey, yeah, I appreciate that. And the customer appreciates it because there's a manager that cares enough to be on top of everything so that it's a well-oiled machine. And that's why he sees a 400% increase in RO open to close dollar value. I mean, it's all about process. John says, when a customer declines, ask why, just as you said, AJ. Implement a strong second close process, no different than the sales department. Sales is sales. Whether you're selling the service or the car, you're dealing with the same customer. So it's just a tweak of the same process. And Mark Williamson, we are in the relationship business, not the car business. When dealers realize this, the game changes. And Robert Sebastian says, Google it. The cases pop up. Safety items missing, resulting in lawsuits. Yeah, Robert told me about this quite some time ago. Yeah. Massive, massive lawsuits. And Robert Allen Carvel says, trust and relationships. That is what our business is built on. That creates word of mouth advertising. And there is not, you know what's better than word of mouth advertising?
What's that?
Nothing. Nothing is better than word of mouth advertising. Because when they say that you walk on water, guess what? You walk on water as far as they're concerned. Michael Barrett says, the industry has failed service advisors. We've let them get bullied by the customer for recommended maintenance when the customer pushes back. Preventative maintenance is cheaper than repairs. No joke. That's what I just said here in the reason for the perform factory multi-point inspection. No maintenance manual suggests oil change only. None. That is 100% correct.
Right. I mean, and an advisor has to be on top of their game. I recommend advisors, Pro Talk Pro Talk has been around for a million years. The magazine,
yeah,
of fixed ops, the Fixed Ops magazine. Every advisor should be getting a copy of it. Stay on top, be relevant, know what's going on in your industry. You should know what your maintenance schedule is for your automobile line pretty much backwards, forwards, and inside out. Like Michael said, if you've got, let's say you've got 15,000 miles on your vehicle, there's nothing wrong with telling a customer, listen, the manufacturer states at this time period, you want to do your oil change, you want to do a tire rotation, also replace your air filter and cabin filter. If in fact that's what it says.
Right.
This is what this is what your owner's manual states. I just want to let you know that. Customers either going to say either yes or no. If they say, yeah, go ahead and do it, great, this is how much it is and it's done. If they say no, no worries. I'm going to have that technician check it as all part of that multi-point inspection. And again, I go into the green, yellow, red. Green's good, yellow needs attention soon, red needs immediate attention. And then what we'll do is I'll bring it to you. I'll go over everything and see what they say. So now if they say no to it and then he comes back with a dirty air filter or dirty cabin filter, hey, remember we talked about what the manufacturer stated? Hey, the technician pulled it out. I wanted to show it to you. Let's go ahead and change that. I mean,
don't be afraid of it.
No, God, no.
You know, the customer can understand common sense, okay? So when you come walking out with a new air filter, this is what it looks like, and here's what yours looks like, and you have the conversation like an air cabin filter is an important component in any vehicle's heating and cooling system. It helps protect the passengers from contaminants in the air they breathe. Failing to replace a dirty or clogged air filter will impact the efficiency of the heating and cooling system in your car, where efficiency can lead to other problems, including loss of air volume, bad odors in the cabin, or premature failure of the AC components. Simply replacing a dirty air filter can make a huge difference in the car's air quality. Who's not going to understand that when you're shown the new and the dirty at the same time?
Yeah, and give realistic examples. Speak to people in terms that they understand. The cabin filter. It's funny. The cabin filter is a funny one because they tell you to replace it. I think it's maybe twice a year. I have 2 dogs. I replace mine 4 times a year. In my, the filter in your house.
Yeah.
It's the same damn thing.
Right.
I replace mine 4 times a year. Why? Because I have dogs. Just because it says do it twice a year doesn't mean that you may do it more and things. But you have to show the customer, you have to talk to them in terms that they understand. There's nothing wrong with, using the analogy of the filter on your furnace at home, or like the air filter. The air filter is like a vacuum cleaner bag.
Yeah, exactly.
If the old vacuum cleaner bed, if it gets clogged, what happens? The motor starts revving. Now it's not that bad. You're not going to hear it on a car, but this is what your air filter looks like. Does the same sort of a thing. It just gets people thinking. It just puts it in real terms.
Yeah, you own it, right? You believe in it, and you relay that information with conviction. You're looking out for them. You're looking out for their safety. You're looking out for their comfort. There's nothing to be shy about. Yeah. Joe Chambers says, speak from a position of knowledge. It's up to the manager to make sure the advisors can be credible by supporting, training, and providing pathways for transparency with the customer. The more people that are on the same page, the better the experience. And, customer experience is what it's all about.
Paul, the people that are on this call, and I know quite a few of them, and there's a lot of talent that's actually on this call and listening. These are the managers that are out there, your Joes, your Michael, your Lamonts. I mean, all these people out there, those are the people that I know. These are people that are at the pinnacle of working with their people, staying on top of them, training them, keeping them in front, moving forward, moving their business forward.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they are the exception and not the rule. There's a lot of managers out there that, hey, so why do you have the tablets? The dealer principal wanted me to buy them. Embrace it. Embrace the technology. Use it. Even if you don't like it, and the fact that your boss turned around and said that you should use them, use it. Maybe it might work out. Maybe it may do something for you. Constantly training your folks, do role plays, find out what's going on, listening to what your people, you were saying, Mr. Fraser out there, he listens to what his people are saying. you have to, if you know that old saying, it's like such a cliche, but it's true. You can't expect what you don't inspect. You
Yeah,
gotta
I
let
mean,
your
we hear
folks
it a
know what's
lot,
going on.
but it's true.
Yeah.
I have a quick message from one of our sponsors, so let's just watch that. Then
Sure.
we'll jump back in. Hey, Ken, there's got to be some repairs that just aren't helping you in the area of retail warranty reimbursement.
We call these the 3 Bs. We call them, number one, batteries, because manufacturers pay for batteries under warranty, so generally you have to include them in the calculation. Number two, bulbs. Again, manufacturers pay for bulb replacement under warranty, so therefore you have to include those in the calculation. And finally, brakes. Most manufacturers will pay for brakes during some period of the warranty, not necessarily the entire warranty, but enough time where you have to include them. So these 3 items are generally low margin, low labor rate items. So you have to manage those. So 60 to 90 days prior to doing a submission, just be aware that probably on the batteries, what you need to do is reduce your flag time to your technician. Don't pay them 5/10, pay them 3/10. Pay them by your door rate. 3/10 at your door rate is not going to get you out of the market on a battery. With bulbs, you might not want to pay your technician to put a bulb in. I mean, the change of bulb is very simple, unless you have some of these complicated ones where you're pulling the front bumper off the car.
Right.
In that case, you can charge your customer the appropriate rate to do that. But most bulbs are very simple. Your guys on the lube rack change those. Don't charge your customer any labor to change the bulb, and your markup on the bulb is probably 300%, so that'll help you on the parts side. And last, the brakes. Brakes are very difficult because most of our technicians, we pay them 2 hours labor, somewhere in there, to machine rotors and put brake pads on. Well, that can be very problematic to your results. So I advise pay them 1.2 to 1.5 hours and charge a little bit more on the labor side and charge list price on the brake side. But more importantly, if your manufacturer offers a nationally or a regionally advertised price for brakes, like some do, and I'll just name them, Ford does, they have a nationally advertised price of $179.95. Most statutes allow you to exclude those if you match the manufacturer's promotional price. So if you charge $179.95, you don't have to include them in your calculation. So those are the ways to deal with the 3 Bs, and you have to deal with those because it can dramatically affect your results, and it wouldn't be good. You have to do it intelligently and manage it. That's our tip of the week.
That's great. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
There's so many ways that we can fine tune and tweak, right? When you have a race car and that car comes into the pit, you're tweaking, fine tuning to squeeze just that other 0.3 of a second out of that car. No different in some of the processes that we have at the dealership. Robert Sebastian says that same customer has often spent a couple of hundred on dinner the night before. Their vehicle condition is just as important. They gladly buy when presented correctly. And Steve Apostolic says, each ownership life cycle touch point earns the next one or not. That includes before the sale, the vehicle sale, and the ownership experience thereafter. Why do most customers not come back to the selling dealer after the point of sale? And the latest stat is, as done by Cox, was only 18% come back to their selling dealer, which means that everybody else doesn't, because it's earned. Nothing works unless all of it works with your dealer experience. And Mark Williamson, only been doing it 34 years, still trying to figure it out. I love that, because the person that knows everything has a lot to learn. Here's a guy, he's 34-year veteran in this business, and he's still trying to figure out, he's still learning every day. Joe Chambers says, right on, AJ, John Fraser, and Paul. Stay involved. Know what's going on in the drive with your people. Listen, look, inspect. Wow, we got some good comments here.
Yeah, look at that.
Mark says, yes, Ken, cut tech hours just like the manufacturers and contribute to our tech shortage. You know, there are different ways, okay, that applies towards a specific reimbursement time. So sometimes you do have to tweak your process in order to gain other dollars. You have to look at overall big picture. And Lamont says, spot on, Joe. And Eric says, the most consistent message has to come from the manager. That message needs to be communicated through training. Managers must train with consistency. Consistency is always key in everything, especially.
You know, Paul, too, when you're training, we always, when we talk about training, we always think of customer pay, how to sell, yes?
Yes.
You got to train, too, on warranty.
Right.
You really have to pay on warranty. I mean, when you look at, you know, go over things with the advisors, like what to look for in the 3 C's, you know, your complaint, cause, and correction. So now they can know what to look for before they submit, you know, a warranty item. You know, they need to understand that their job is to record that customer's complaints, use active listening techniques, use survey symptom, worksheets if need be. Learn how to ask open and closed-ended questions to get the exact information so it's, you know, brought out. I mean, I love when technicians bring me up in RO and they say that a part is bad. I like to joke around. I say the only thing that's bad are little children, that little crying, and little puppies that crap on the carpet. Parts can't be bad. They're worn, they're torn, they're shorted, whatever. You have to get a really good explanation. The responsibility of the advisor is, again, to create that preliminary estimate, ensure that warranty has not been, make sure that the warranty hasn't been canceled. Know what to look for, how to, you know, look at the documentation. Those are all things that they also need to be trained on. Things like, you know, add-ons on the RO. Is it getting signed by a manager? These are all things that they have to be trained on as well. Because you get audited, they're going to come in, they're going to take the money. They're just, you know, they have to justify their existence.
And just to Mark's point before, the cutting was not normal business all the time. When you're going for a rate increase, you want to maximize the rate that you're going to get from the OEM. And those are specific techniques used in order to maximize it. Once you have that rate, until it's time for another rate adjustment, we are all getting paid more by getting higher reimbursement rates. The technician, the manager, we all get a piece of the pie. So if we can, so that tweak or technique was before submission to make sure you're getting the maximum dollars. Well, let's face it, running a dealership is a science today, right? It's not, you're not just running a repair shop. It's a science. You have to balance, you know, the manufacturer's required stocking and what you have to buy from them. You know, it's a constant give and take struggle. And that was just a tip to maximize the warranty dollars you're going to get. It's not a everyday procedure. All right, what else you got for me?
A lot of good comments. I'm sorry?
What else you got for me?
What do you want to know about? I did a lot of work with express service. Some dealerships like it, some dealerships don't. My take on express service is real simple. If you look at your work mix that's coming into your dealership, probably about 60% plus is basic maintenance.
Right.
If you're making appointments for basic maintenance, all you're doing is suppressing your demand. You know, an oil change is kind of like that Snickers bar that's sitting at the counter when you're going to the grocery store and you're paying. It's an impulse buy.
I get it every time.
nobody makes plans for the most part. I know, right? Nobody makes plans for the most part for an oil change. I mean, some do, but most people, they look at the dash, the oil light comes on, the service light comes on, or they look at the little sticker on their windshield, and then they go, "Oh crap, I got to get an oil change."
Yeah.
And again, we know and we take for granted that we can go a little bit further. That's the reason. We're like the plumbers with leaky pipes.
Yeah.
But your customers aren't that way. Your customers see that they're due for an oil change. They literally inside panic, and they're going to be going to the first person that will allow them to come in and allow them to do business with them. If they choose to call you and say, "I want to come in," and you say, "Sure, come on in, no problem. We're open from 7 o'clock until 5 o'clock. You can come in anytime during then, and we can get you done while you wait." If you're not saying that,
you plan for it. You have to know a certain percentage of your business is going to be walk-in, and you have to be able to accommodate. As much as I'd love to train everybody to come in only by appointment, the reality is we are in right now, we live in micro moments, and oh, my light just came on. I need to get my service. And when I said this, I don't remember which show it was, but it was recently. If you're going to have express service on your building, you need to offer express service. I went into my local Subaru dealer here. They had express service on the building, and I said, "Yeah, I'm here for my express service. I need oil change and tire rotation and and a multi-point inspection." I told them that. They said, "Well, what day would you like to come in?"
Yeah.
"I'm here now." It said, "Well, right now we're booking for next week, but what's the express service part? How express is next week? Express is not next week."
I've had the pleasure of working with numerous OEMs when it comes to Express. I've worked with Mopar, which is Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Subaru, Acura, Nissan, Infiniti. I've had the pleasure of working with all of them. There's certain components that you should have in place. Okay. You should have parts in the bay. You should have quick, easy op codes that are pretty brainless that you just pop in there. You should have quick, easy pricing.
Yeah.
Make sure the pricing. That's another thing that's a big deal. I mean, anybody out there, I hope nobody's charging labor to put wiper blades on, because that's like such an insult. It's crazy. But want to have parts in the bay. You want to have ease of access. You don't want to make appointments. But the big thing is, you got to have some sort of a process, and you have to be available for all of your hours of operation.
Bingo.
If you forget your wife's anniversary and you didn't get her a gift, and you're like, "Oh crap, I got to go and get her a piece of jewelry," and you go open up your phone and you look and you see that the jewelry store says it's open until 9 at night, you're great. And you show up at 8 and they're closed.
There's a problem.
That place, you're going to tell everybody and their mother how bad that place is because they're closed. If
that
you
happened
look
to
at
me
a lot
recently. Not the anniversary thing. The bank's supposed to be open till noontime. I show up at 11. They're gone. Not going to be gone. It says right online, noontime.
I worked at a dealership that if I mentioned their name, everybody would know it. But they said to me, it's not working. Okay. So let me look at a couple different things. So first of all, I went to their website. Their website said that they opened up at 7 o'clock in the morning and they closed at 7 o'clock at night. So I said, "Okay, do you have coverage from 7 to 7? "Oh, well, no." "Well, what do you mean no?" "Well, the techs don't get here until 8. Okay, so that's 1 hour. That's 1 hour. Okay. Then 12 o'clock rolls around. It's like you have lunch. So they close down their express business for an hour. Okay. And then everybody leaves at 5, but says that you're open until 7.
Right.
So 4 hours a day that you advertise that you're open, you're not available for your customers. So what is that?
Coach. That's another 20 minutes.
But just look at that alone.
Right.
That's 20 hours a week.
Yeah. People don't think
20
about
hours
that.
a week that you're not. If you do an average, and again, if you do it all right and you do a proper process, that you could probably do a decent amount of throughput through one particular bay, that you could probably do about 3 an hour. So potentially, if they just did an oil change and a tire rotation, that's 60 oil changes and tire rotations. And then a lot of dealerships have the goal to say, well, I'm not making any money on oil changes and tire rotations. Well, you're not available when the customer needs you. You have to be available when the customer needs you, not the other way around. And unfortunately, we still have a lot of that mentality that's out there. You have to staff for it. If somebody calls out sick, you gotta have coverage. At McDonald's, if the fry cook doesn't come in today, somebody still's got to make the fries.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same type of a thing. You have to be available for when the customer wants you. Somebody had mentioned Mark Williamson over there in the comments. It's got to be separate from your service drive. Ideally, you should. If you run your business right with Express, it can actually. That is the machine. If you do it right, that's the machine that will feed your repair shop.
And the adage of, well, we don't make money on oil changes and tire rotation. No, it's part of, you got to think big picture, right? You got to think big picture. You want them to come to you for everything, the little stuff, the big stuff, all of it, because the minute they go somewhere else, you open up the possibility that somebody else is going to wow them. And if somebody wows them, they'll woo them and tell them, hey, look, I know, we just did this minor service for you now. Maybe it was their first time in. This is your first time here. Where do you normally go for your servicing? Well, I go to my dealer. I'll tell you what. Was it an easy experience today? Yeah, it was really easy. Was it a lot of money today? No, it was more than reasonable. Would you like to save money on your next repair that's coming up that you're probably planning on going to the dealer for? What are they going to say? No?
And here's another thing too, and we could have a conversation on this one thing all night long. A lot of times, Express is usually guilty, from a lot of dealerships' perspective, it's guilty of unapplied time.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So if an oil change is, let's say an oil change is $40. What difference does it make whether you have a cost of sale on that $40 or not? From a technician standpoint, you're still collecting $40 for an oil change. So let's say you have two guys in a bay, they're making $15 an hour. That's $30 drop dead of what you're paying them per hour. They're getting $30 in that bay that you're paying out, whether you do 5 oil changes a day or 50 oil changes a day. If you don't have a cost of sale on that op code, it's not unapplied time. Your guys are hourly. That's what the big problem is. Your controllers, they're not exactly sure what to do with that extra. They're not sure what to do. They're so used to this in a bucket going 3/10, 4/10, and all this other stuff being dumped in a bucket.
Yeah.
These guys are only getting $12 an hour. And again, I'm just using that as an example. They're getting $12, $15 an hour. And then the controller turns around and takes all this money that's sitting in this bucket and dumps it right towards your fixed operations department or your service department. So now you're paying for the technicians not once, but twice.
Right.
So that's a conversation probably for another time, but it's crazy.
I want to make sure we get to all the comments. Mark Williamson said, just keeping it real, Paul. No, I totally get it, man. It's all good. It's all good. We've got to look at a lot of things at the same time. And sometimes we have to make adjustments that maybe we don't want to make. So it's cool. Robert says, Mark Williamson, on the RO, you'd still pay the tech the same rate as a bonus or some other way. Take care of the tech. Absolutely. Robert Allen Carvel says, cycle times, presenting the MPI, have advanced express maintenance, oil and filters in the express service bay, optimize the technician's time in the bay. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. They're not turning, they're not earning. And that goes across the board. Corey Henderson says, kind of disagree. Oil change is gateway to an MPI and lifelong relationship need to be treated to the highest level of service we can offer. Yeah, that's what I was saying before. It's another point. It's another experience. A customer that comes to you
Absolutely.
for all of their servicing is 5 times more likely to buy their next car from you, whether or not they bought the current car they're servicing with you now. And Robert Allen Carvel says 38-year anniversary next week. Thanks for reminding me. LOL. How many hours do your technicians actually work a day? There's varying schools of thought on that. What do you see out there?
What am I see? I mean, when you're talking about how many hours a week that, are they working? Well, you've got the rule of 5. You want to, like to have 5 ROs going through each particular bay. Express is a different animal. Express is a completely different animal. You have to look at throughput. How many, what are they doing in there? It's hard to say of how many, are they actually working a day? That's kind of a loaded question.
And it varies by store too.
Absolutely.
Mark says we run 250 to 300 plus guests per week through our Service Express without them going through our service drive with a higher average CSI. You have to staff correctly. Bam, that's right to your point.
Yep.
And guess what? That's 250 to 300 great referrals right there, because anybody that has a good experience, is going to refer you. It's not rocket science. That's just a fact. And Steve Apicella says, even worse, I made an appointment at a Ford Quick Lane for an oil change, air filter change, and tire rotation. I dropped off my vehicle at my scheduled time and left 3 hours later. One time anomaly. No, it happened on the next visit too. There will not be a third visit there. 100%. What I've seen in some stores, and I love this, is they have a board, an easel board. Now it's old school, okay? It's a marker on paper or a marker on a eraser board. But they have the arrival time and they have a promise time. And they do their best to stick with that promise time to have that customer out within an hour. Anything that can be measured can be improved. And if you set the expectation up front so they understand that you're really respecting their time, and so much so that you're going to put it right out there, you're going to commit to it, they're going to love you for it.
Paul, whatever you're doing, if you have a process and the process is followed consistently, that takes care of the time. That takes care of the time. When you have a lot of stores that try to implement, say, an express business that just don't have any process, and when time becomes the number one factor, that's when things get missed. That's when oil plugs get left loose. That's when lug nuts get left loose. But if there is a process and a checks and balances that everything is going through, the process will take care of the time. You can't do
100%.
it without a process. You can't do it without a process.
And here's the funny thing too, the customers will know which stores follow a process and which won't before even deciding whether or not to come in. Because when you look up on Google and you look at customer reviews, okay, reviews are kind of a mixed bag. But because with the gaming software, you don't really know 100% whether or not the reviews are really legitimate and genuine. However, if you have a store where you see a variety of customers complaining repeatedly to the point that Steve makes, I made an appointment and I'm out 3 hours later. Nobody wants to spend 3 hours. Nobody. So when that becomes a common complaint that customers see before even coming to your store and decide not to visit, you don't even know the dollars you've lost from those people, Ron Usher says, take care of your techs. Have a nice week.
Yep.
Thank you, Ron. Mark Williamson says, Robert Sebastian got to take care of the house at some point. Don't minimize the importance of brake work by discounting the price. Customer perception will be brake work is cheap and easy until they don't work. I had a customer one time, they came in to have brake work done. It was a Lincoln Mark V. They pulled into the lot and they stopped into the building, meaning they couldn't stop. They crashed into the building. And the person gets out of the car and says, yeah, I'm here. I'm having some issue with my brakes. Can you take a look at them for me? So yeah, no, you're right. There's nothing cheap and easy. You know what I just realized? We're over time. Now, granted, we own the network, so nobody cares, but I do try to be respectful on time. So we've gone over 10 minutes. So I guess on one side, my apologies for going over. On the other side, the questions were great. The contributions were great, which brought us to the extra 10 minutes. So AJ, I want to thank you very much, man. This has been a great episode. I appreciate your sharing.
Paul, thank you. So I'm humbled. I'm humbled to be on your show. Great group of folks that came in. I mean, some great stuff came through. Again, thanks very much for having me.
And thank you guys. Had some awesome questions today. Michael Weldon says, great subject. Got to get the word out. Yes, share this show with everybody.
Hit me up on LinkedIn, everybody. Hit me up on LinkedIn, everyone. Just friend me. We're all in.
And Timothy Wilson said, great chat tonight. So everybody, thank you very much. Corey Henderson, thank you. And we'll see you online. And at the very least, have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks again.
Take care, everyone.